Hello, I'm Pastor Aaron. Welcome to Redeemer Lutheran's Midweek Devotion. Thank you for tuning in. In the last few weeks in our congregation, and I'm sure in many congregations, we've been focused on the resurrection of Jesus. Now, there are many who wonder, did that really happen, and is it important? Is the Christian faith that Jesus rose from the dead really well-founded? Is it founded in any kind of rational belief, or is it pretty much just irrational? Well, let's just start from the point of a worldly view. Let's just take, for example, that there are many secular sources, not just the Bible, but I'm talking outside the Bible, that can confirm that there was a guy, a man who lived whose name was Jesus, and those same outside sources would tell us that he in fact was crucified. Now, what we know about crucifixion is that it was successful 100% of the time. So that means if he was crucified, he definitely died. Now there's this news being spread that the guy who died is alive again. Is that even rational to believe? Well, the people who saw him were willing to lay down their life, confessing they had seen him alive. That's pretty convincing proof. Here's why. These people weren't told that he had been raised from the dead and were believing a delusion that someone had passed off on them. These people actually claimed to have seen Jesus alive, even though he was crucified. They claimed to have seen the marks of crucifixion on his hands and feet. That would have been unheard of. That would have been so earth-shaking to see someone alive that had the marks of crucifixion, because crucifixion always succeeded in bringing about death. But to a person, they were all willing to lay down their lives on the claim that he had in fact been raised from the dead. So if you deny that Jesus has been raised from the dead, you simply have to address this idea, this notion that so many people who had seen him alive, and were told by one witness up to 500 people had seen him alive, would they all be willing to go down for a lie? Would you? If you had been spreading a lie, doesn't matter what it was, any kind of a lie, and were finally faced with, I don't know, life in prison or maybe the death penalty, if you knew you were going because you were lying, would there come a point when you'd give it up? I believe there would be. But even if you could get one or two people to die for a lie, could you get 13 people, 25, 500 people to die for a lie? I don't believe so. I think at some point someone's going to say, the body's over here, we were lying, the gig is up, right? But that never happened. There's a reason for that. Because Jesus really did rise from the dead. And credible witnesses saw him alive. And they left that record for us in the Bible, the sacred scriptures. And so we have it on good authority, eyewitness accounts. Yes, this Jesus really is risen from the dead. Does it matter? Oh, well, that's another question altogether. Does it matter? Well, the Bible then goes on to tell us it absolutely matters. Because if he didn't rise from the dead, your faith is futile. You're still in your sins. In other words, your sins aren't forgiven. You still have to make it right with God. But because Jesus has been raised from the dead, your faith isn't futile or useless. Your sins have been forgiven. If Jesus hasn't been raised from the dead, then people who die believing in him, well, they just die and that's the end. But in fact, if Jesus has been raised from the dead, then those who died believing in him haven't met the end. But they are with him, awaiting the resurrection at the last day. And they, along with us, then share in that wonderful hope of a physical resurrection and an eternity with him in heaven. St. Paul affirms for us, but Christ has indeed been raised from the dead, the first fruits of those who have fallen asleep. St. Paul was one who didn't believe in Jesus, one who didn't believe in the resurrection of Jesus. But he saw Jesus with his own eyes, and it changed everything for him, just as it changes everything for you. Because Jesus has been raised from the dead, your sins have been fully and freely forgiven by your God. You have his gift of righteousness to cover for your lack of it. You have the certainty of the resurrection from the dead. Yes, your body and soul will be raised again at the last day. And for those of you who put your faith in Jesus, you have the hope of rising with a glorified body and living with him in heaven forever. Does the resurrection of Jesus matter? It's a matter of life and death. I pray you believe it. It's the truth. Happy Easter.